Sal Benz.
Live when the mic snap.
Justin.
In the cut, bring the fight back. Windy City talk, turn it down, that's that. Welcome to the show, it's Bulls on Tap. Bulls on tap, pull it up, press play. Chi-Town talk, we can run it all day. From the tip-off buzz to the post-game rap. If you rock with the Bulls, you rock with Bulls on Tap.
Bulls Nation, you are tapped into the Bulls on Tap podcast, the official Chicago Bulls podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. Sal Bass here, standing by with Justin, ready to serve you up an ice-cold round of Chicago Bulls content. So if you're ready to talk Bulls, pull up a stool, throw on your favorite Michael Jordan jersey, and let's get this show on the road. Justin, how's it going today, man? Happy Sunday. The Bulls finally got a victory. How are you doing today?
Man, I couldn't be better. I mean, we just played that intro video. Anytime you get to see Scottie Pippen dunk it on Patrick Ewing and then push him to the ground, you're going to be in a good mood. So the Bulls won. We're here. We're here to talk about the Bulls. We're here to remind fans how it could be much worse, and it has been much worse in the past. So I'm good, man. How's your day going?
Honestly, perfect. Kind of a busier day. The wife and I had a baby shower to go to, so we were we were away, and since it was a baby shower, I got to actually watch the game, and we got a win. So, I mean, any day that the Bulls win is a good day, no matter what. So, jumping right into it, Justin, I'm really excited to start this one because, as you could tell by the tones of our voices, when the Bulls do well, we sound happier. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, Justin, we just won today a beautiful 120-97 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks, snapping an 11-game skid, actually snapping what is the worst statistical month that the Chicago Bulls have had in franchise history. I know the 11 games is, what was it, third worst or fourth worst start?
I think it was the third worst.
Third worst start since this franchise has ever seen. So let's just jump right into the game, and then we'll talk about why Bulls fans should not be as worried as they are right now. So, Justin, my first question to you is, after watching this game, the Bulls won very, very, very comfortably. They won, was it 23 points here? Would you say that the Bulls won this game because of the way they played, or would you say that the Milwaukee Bucks just did not play well enough?
Both. I mean, the Bulls played great. Colin Sexton had his best game of the year, and that's including his time with the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, I'm looking at his stats here. 22 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. He shot 64% and 38% from 3. He was a plus 28 in his minutes, and it felt like it when you watched it. Like when he was out there, his energy was making a huge difference. We got to give Leonard Miller a shout out to an insane plus 38 in his minutes. And I like what I saw from him. He's big. Like when you see him out there, the size, you definitely notice it. He hustles, he plays with energy. He's still, on ball. He's not much of a threat when it comes to creating or when it comes to shooting, but the energy that he plays with, if you took his motor and you gave him the skill set of Patrick Williams, you probably have Kawhi Leonard. So I like what I'm seeing from Leonard Miller, but on the flip side, it's the Milwaukee Bucks, man. They're led by Cam Thomas and Bobby Portis, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be hyped for a win, but like when you look at their schedule, this is a game that if they were going to get a win and break this streak, this was going to be the game that they did it.
Yeah, definitely. The Bulls had perhaps the most to play for this game. As we all know that. Me and you, we're both not a fan of tanking. We'd like everyone to go out there and play their absolute hardest, or at least, if you're going to go out there, you might as well play for the win. And especially without a Giannis on the court today was the perfect opportunity for the Chicago Bulls to snap that 11-game skid. And they did exactly that. I thought lately, here's my take. Lately, we've gotten very close games at the half, and then after the half, the Bulls just kind of forfeit the lead, and the opposing team really runs rapid and takes a toll on us. Today, that did not happen. So what would you say was the biggest key to success as to making sure that we didn't take our foot off the gas and we actually pushed harder on the gas?
I would say Billy shortened the rotation. I mean, Rob Dillingham really didn't get any minutes. I think he saw like a brief 3-minute stretch in the first half, and he was pretty bad in that first half. So we didn't bring him back. So in the last couple of games, Rob's been, 15 to 20 minutes a game. So they took those minutes. You saw Giddey get over 30 minutes. You saw Colin Sexton get over 30 minutes. Isaac Okoro, Buzelis, they consolidated the minutes. They made sure that the better players played, which, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm anti-tank. My position has just been it's too late in the game for the Bulls to have initiated a tank. Like where we're at right now, we're not going to lose enough games to really catch anybody below us in the standings as far as the lottery goes, because those teams below us are also trying to tank. So I don't have a problem with getting a win like this. There's people on Twitter that are mad, but it's like, guys, we can't lose every game. And from a standpoint of a young player like Modest Buzelis, you don't want to lose every game because you saw his attitude after the last game. The dude was downright distraught. He looked like his prom date just stood him up. So it's nice for him to get a win and for him to play well too.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of people that kind of beg for a tank and all that, they really never look at what it actually does on the player's end. I know they're focusing on, there's a better chance that I get a first overall pick or a better draft pick, but that's not always the case. I mean, a lot of people that are asking for tanks and wanting tanks, sure, it gives you a better opportunity to capture a higher pick, but that doesn't always mean you get the first overall pick. And throwing that forward to in our position, you had mentioned, if this is a quote unquote take, I still refuse to put the title on it, but we certainly started a little too late, but again, just because you have the worst record in the league doesn't mean you get the number 1 overall pick. And just because you win the championship doesn't mean you don't get the first overall pick, because I'll throw you guys back to the 1982 Los Angeles Lakers, who had the opportunity and captured an NBA championship and still got the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Yep. Do you know who they picked, by the way?
James Worthy.
That's right. Yeah. So just because you win a title doesn't exclude you from a number 1 overall pick. Now, granted, yes, there's trades involved that and what have you. But overall, it doesn't always guarantee, and it doesn't take away from any chances. So really, any sort of tank or forceful losing, you're really more suffering on the player's end, because you're wasting a year of development. You're bestowing like a losing atmosphere on them. And we really want these players to shine and be the best that they can be. And as we know, when we're winning, everyone's happy. When we're losing, everyone's morale is in the dumps, and team chemistry falls. And team chemistry is something that even on a team with, we'll just say, mediocre players, you got a bunch of good mediocre players, but you have good team chemistry, your team looks incredible just because that team gels so well. You can have a team of nothing but all-stars out there, and if they don't gel together and they have poor morale, it's going to reflect negatively on the actual outcome of the game. Justin, we did mention earlier that this was statistically one of the worst records, or one of the worst months in Chicago Bulls history. Can you kind of walk us through what was the worst and why Bulls fans really shouldn't have to worry right now?
Yeah, so I did a bunch of research. If anybody follows me, they know I'm a basketball historian. I'm always talking about, the old school game, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. So there's stretches that statistically were worse than what we just went through. There's also stretches that, even though they're not statistically worse than what we went through, there's stretches of seasons that I found that were more disappointing because our hopes were so much higher. So obviously the 1999 season, that lockout shortened season, definitely one of the most disappointing seasons in Bulls history. They got rid of everybody. They got rid of Phil, Michael, Dennis, Scotty. But the funny thing is, if you go back and you read stories and season previews, people still thought the Bulls were at least going to be a playoff team. They thought Tony Kukoc could carry the load a little bit. They really thought he was going to ascend because he was still, I think he was 28 or 29. He was enders, but they didn't expect them to be as bad as they were, and they were pretty bad. They finished out the season going 3-14. They only scored 77 points a game. They only shot 38% from the field to close it out. And on that team, they only had 3 guys averaging double digits. So That team, one of the most disappointing teams in Chicago Bulls history, and that should have been a sign. That should have been a sign that the next couple of years were going to be really rough for the Chicago Bulls. The next year, the 1999 year, this is where they went 2-25. So they had Elton Brand. He was a rookie. Ron Artest was also a rookie. They had Tony Kukoc for a little bit during that stretch. They brought back BJ Armstrong, which is crazy that they brought him back to finish his career there. Dickie Simpkins, Will Perdue was brought back, Randy Brown. So they still had remnants of that dynasty team mixed in with the number one pick, Elton Brand and Ron Artest. We obviously expect them to be better. But November and December, they started out that season 2-25. So that obviously worse than what we went through right now. And then we can finish this off lumping in that 2001 team, the 16-game losing streak. What I wrote in my notes for that team was simply Marcus Fizer. I think that's all you got to say is that all that losing that we went to led to a lottery pick by the name of Marcus Fizer, where if you're not old enough to remember being disappointed about Marcus Fizer, I can't really take your basketball opinion serious. So I know we're about the same age, Sal, but those 99, 2000, 2001 seasons, what do you remember about them? Because I remember being a kid, being around 10, 11, 12 years old and being like, wait, did I hitch my wagon to a losing team? Was I fooled by Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen?
I mean, what I saw is I just saw the demise of a dynasty. Like I never lived through, obviously neither of us lived through the Roman Empire or any of those historic empires in history, but this had to have been what it looked like after those empires were wiped from the face of the earth, because there was shrouds of it. Like you said, there was a few here and there players, but it basically was a reality check that whatever winning ways that we had gone to the wayside, and now it's time to develop new days and work towards a goal and a championship away from the Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, and Scottie Pippen era. And it was kind of heartbreaking. As far as the team, honestly, since I just love watching basketball and I'm a big fan of the Chicago Bulls, I was a big fan of Elton Brand's. I loved Ron Artest. What people don't understand is that team had some great talent. They were young talent that couldn't work together to win games. I mean, Elton Brand, look at what he went on to be. Ron Artest, or Meta World Peace, whatever you want to call him, went on to be arguably one of the greatest defenders in the history of our game. And people forget he came up from the Bulls. Yeah, your Ron Mercers. I mean, but even taking it forward to your Tyson Chandlers, your Eddie Currys, your Jamal Crawfords, we had some actual talent walk through the gates there. It's just we couldn't develop into winning ways. But of course, in typical Chicago fashion, we trade them away and they become incredible players. So really, it was just an eye-opening experience that the old Bulls are gone and the new Bulls, the baby Bulls, are here. So, and I really haven't recovered since.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look back on those teams, because at one point we had Elton Brand, Jamal Crawford, Ron Artest, Brad Miller on the team. And it seemed like something was percolating with those guys. And then they go and trade, what was it, Ron Artest and Brad Miller for Jalen Rose, who was already on the downside of his career. I think he gave us a couple 20-point seasons, but it was like, that was when you kind of, I'm assuming, at least because like I said, I was 12 or 13, so I wasn't necessarily plugged in back then, but I'm assuming that's when people kind of started realizing maybe Jerry Krause doesn't know what the hell he's doing, because he traded this young talent for an older player. And then, of course, the trade that will always drive me crazy, because I was a huge Elton Brand fan, was when we traded him to get Tyson Chandler. Not that Tyson Chandler was a bad player. He went on to be a very good player. But Elton Brand, he came into the league at 19, and for his first 3 years, he was 20-10. So didn't really make sense to trade him for the number 2 pick in what was considered a weak draft. But we got a couple more dark parts here. And these next ones, this will start to be where more of our audience will start to remember stuff. This next season, I was a senior in high school for this season, because my junior year, I was super excited for this team. So the 2006-2007 team, remember, we sweep the defending champion Miami Heat. Ben Wallace gives us, I think he still finished first team all defense in the first year of his contract. We had young Tyrus Thomas, who showed some promise. Ben Gordon was ascending. Luol Deng was ascending. Kirk Heinrich was ascending. And because of a trade we made years before, we got the Knicks' unprotected first-round pick. We added Joakim Noah, coming off 2 national championships. The hopes were high. We were expecting another contending season. Started out the season 3-10. It led to us dismantling that team. Scott Skiles got fired. What is your memory? Now, in the end, this all worked out because that led to the luck of us getting Derrick Rose. But that season, we came in with real expectations. What was your memory of that team that swept the defending champion Miami Heat, and then somehow the next year came back and it all went to shit?
I mean, it was just basically another seesaw teeter-totter, just when we're looking good, we take a couple steps back. But really, honestly, I didn't think we were all there. Like, not that, I guess, like, what I'm saying is, I didn't think we had the talent to compete with that team. I kind of figured we were just a first-round exit, and I feel like we needed more talent. I think that's when it really occurred to me that we need that guy that can take us to the next level. We need that superstar because everyone else had a superstar. Now, granted, we were fairly good with better than average players. I'll give them that because our roster was stacked. I mean, with players I liked, but it really could tell that if we just had that superstar, that person to put us over the top, that we could have done something special. Now, throw in your Derrick Rose, who is that superstar that was something special. Plug in your Joakim Noah, plug in with all those pieces. We built a pretty special thing. So it just shows you that we needed something else.
And this is kind of the tone of the next couple disappointing seasons that I'm talking about here, where like this season, the 0-11 stretch, it wasn't that disappointing to me because I didn't have any expectations of this team. Like we were before this 0-11 stretch, we were 10th in the East. We were going to have another play-in season. I didn't think we were that good of a team. Was I rooting for us to tank? Not really. Was I rooting for another play-in appearance? Not really. I was just kind of along for the ride, hoping to see some growth from Modest Buzelis, Josh Giddey, see if Kobe White returned to form, that kind of thing. These seasons, however, the 2007-2008 season I just outlined, like I came into that season expecting, okay, we took down the defending champions. We got to the second round. We can build on that. We're adding Joakim Noah. We're going to get, I expected Luol Deng to take an all-star leap or Ben Gordon to take an all-star leap. So when that team started out 3-10, I felt far more disappointed than I did with the 0-11 stretch we just went through. The next team that I'm going to bring up is the 2009-2010 team. Now, you remember Derrick Rose's rookie year. We started out and we were kind of middle of the road. We were below 500 for most of the year. Mid-season, we go ahead, we make a big trade. We bring in Brad Miller and John Salmons. John Salmons does not get enough credit for that Celtics series. Ben Gordon, you always see those highlights go around, but John Salmons was a dog in that series. Ben Gordon was trading baskets with Ray Allen that series. John Salmons was trading baskets with Paul Pierce that series. So those two guys, they were going at it. So we come into the next year. We're bringing back the same exact group. We figure, okay, Joakim Noah was kind of a show-out series for him against the Celtics because before that, we were kind of on the fence about Noah. He hadn't been very consistent. There had been some attitude questions. He'd been fighting with the coaching staff. Derrick Rose was going into year two. We thought that team was also going to take a leap, be something to contend with. They started out that season 13-17, and then they kind of scrapped the whole thing. They gave away John Salmons in a trade. They made a couple other moves too. I think they traded away Tyrus Thomas, who in that Celtics series, he actually averaged 2.5 blocks a game that series, 10 points, 8 rebounds. He was starting to show something too. What do you remember about that team specifically? How did you feel about them coming off that close Celtics series? And what were your expectations going into the next year?
I mean, speaking from a guy that has watched this Bulls team win 3 championships, I'll say that Celtics series was by far one of my favorite series and quite possibly one of the best playoff series in Chicago Bulls history. I think we registered 13 overtimes or 11 overtimes in that series alone. And that just proved that the Bulls were here. The Bulls were here. We're ready. It's time. Like, this is our time. We've emerged because if I'm not mistaken, they went on to win the title, the Celtics. So if you telling me that we went toe to toe with the team that went on to win the championship and we were still a very young team, like, it was like, oh, wow, it's eye-opening. This team is something special. We are going to not only get older and more and gel together, we're going to get more talented, and this team is going to be insane. You mentioned Joakim Noah, how he started out slow, and that's a perfect example of what I want to touch on by saying for all of those people who gave up on or giving up on Modest and saying that Modest is kind of trailing off, Joakim Noah is a prime example of somebody there. Do not give up on them, because Joakim Noah, as slow as he started, this is the same guy who later went on to be one of the best centers in Chicago Bulls history. I think he was 5th in MVP voting or 3rd in MVP voting a year that Derrick Rose went down. So you just got to be patient. Let these players develop, man. Modest Buzelis is going to be something special in the league. And I know everybody knows it, but it's really easy when the Bulls are not performing at a top level and losing games. And it's just down times. It's easy to hang your head and be like, well, maybe he isn't the guy I thought he was. Maybe he's just another run-of-the-mill player. And it's players like Noah that's like, just chill. You know what I mean? When the team performs bad, individual players perform bad. With growth and development, Modest is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this league, and I promise you that. Now,
absolutely. Just a small correction. That wasn't the Celtics team that went on to win the title. That was the defending champion Celtics. They were down.
Okay.
Yeah, they were down Kevin Garnett, but that team, I mean, it was still a tough out. They were all still champions, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and the Bulls were severely undermatched and took it to them. But I 100% agree with what you're saying when it comes to Modest Buzelis and people. I've had people in my replies saying like that, like just being like, screw Modest Buzelis, this kid doesn't have it. And, I've been on record and I've said I don't think he's an all-NBA player, which some people will take that as me dogging the kid. That's not dogging the kid. There's only 15 guys that can make an all-NBA team. It is incredibly rare to make an all-NBA team. There's players where you look at their basketball reference, good players, Hall of Fame level players. They have like one all-NBA appearance. We just talked about Elton Brand. He made one all-NBA appearance his entire career. Jermaine O'Neal, he only made 2. Rasheed Wallace never made an all-NBA team. So there are good Hall of Fame level players who never make an all-NBA team. Just because I say a kid is an all-NBA level or I don't see that path for him, one, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. I can't predict the future, but 2, doesn't mean that the kid's still not going to be nice. So with Modest Buzelis, just like Joakim Noah, just be patient with him, let him grow. Joakim, it took till what? Year 4 was the year that he kind of finally broke out and was a borderline all-star that year. And I think year 5 was the first year he made the all-star team. So you just got to have patience with these kids, which kind of plays in. It kind of caps on. So this caps off the Rose and Noah era. Their era sandwiches between 2 disappointing seasons. So Rose's second season was a little disappointing. We had the slow start, like I talked about, and then we got waxed by LeBron and the Cavs in that playoff series. And then their final season, it was a disappointing 40-42 season where they didn't make the playoffs. And the year before, we all had pretty high hopes for that team. It was a tough playoff loss to LeBron and the Cavaliers. That's still a what if for me. I mean, we had Joakim Noah, we had Pau Gasol, we had Jimmy Butler, we had Derrick Rose, Mike Dunleavy. Like the list goes on and on. I think Kirk Heinrich was back on that team too. So then the next year, they started out all right, but they hit a lull in that January to February mark where they only went 12-18. That's when they fell down the standings. There were injuries that played. Joakim got hurt. Pau Gasol got hurt. Derrick Rose wasn't quite right. But what do you remember about that team? Like when they lost to the Cavaliers and then they retooled in the offseason, they added some more pieces. Did you think they were going to be a contender? Because I think all of us looked at that Big Four and thought this is a championship quality team.
Well, like any team, like any fan who's biased to their teams, anytime you add familiar players or players that just have a high reputation in the league, yeah, naturally you're going to think, oh, this might be our year. We retooled. We got some better players. I believe you're referencing to the Rondo, Dwayne Wade year, or are we still talking the year that traded Jimmy?
We're talking
traded Rose.
This is the year. So this is what led to them trading Rose. They went 40-42. Fred Hoiberg was the coach. Joakim was out a good chunk of the year. Pau Gasol, I think he still made the All-Star game, but he missed some games. Derrick Rose and Jimmy, there was reports of friction for them behind the scenes. But that offseason, the 40-42 year and missing the playoffs, they finished the 9 seed that year. That offseason is what led to them getting rid of Derrick Rose, not resigning Joakim Noah, and building the 3 Alphas team.
I remember that year being the year of the Bulls knew that they didn't have it. I mean, not that they didn't have it. I mean, that team, they knew that they needed more to win a title. Like Rose had been coming off a couple in. Now, granted, Rose was still the man. I'm never wrote Rose off. You saw the emergence of Jimmy Butler. I'm suspecting there was some conflict in the locker room. I mean, they just lost Tibbs. I mean, the Tibbs was their savior. A lot of people forget how good of a coach Tibbs was. I know a lot of them are quick to blame Tibbs for the injury of Derrick Rose and kind of ruining everything, which is why now I hate getting sidetracked, but the most beautiful thing in the world is when Derrick Rose in the United Center look at the fans and say, it's not his fault. I forgive him. Like, we all need to forgive Tom Thibodeau. That aside, people forget just how good Tom Thibodeau was as a coach. I didn't have my full faith in Fred Hoiberg just because of the fact that I'm a firm believer, man, that just because you're a well-known and reputable coach in the NCAA, that doesn't always translate into the big leagues, man. Like, a lot of people think like you're going to get this NCAA coach and immediately in the league, he's going to come in and change the dynamic of the NBA. And that's not always the case. You know, sometimes you just get a really good college coach. Like, look at Hoiberg. He had a stint in the NBA. He wasn't good. He went back down to college and he's having success again. So I was kind of not really invested in the Hoiberg system. I mean, it was cool that we had a former player, because I remember when Hoiberg was playing, I think wasn't he the mayor of Minnesota, or he was a mayor in
I think that was his nickname. I don't think he ever actually became the mayor anywhere. I think that was just his nickname.
Okay, I thought he like ran for mayor or something, and that's why they called him that. But it kind of I guess more of the story is it kind of started looking like it was a slow breakup. You know what I mean? That we were starting to see the writing on the walls that Bulls era of Derrick Rose, Noah, it was starting to break. And then finally the news hit that Rose had been traded. I mean, that was a trade that I don't think I'll ever forget. The location I was, you know, what I was wearing. It's one of those key moments in history that when you turn on the TV and you see, you know, somebody like that of that caliber being traded, because in a million years, I know the NBA in the end of the day is a business. I would have never said the Bulls would ever trade Derrick Rose. And here it was right in front of my face. Reality struck. So it was basically just ushering in, again, like the end of the 98, you know, and it's just ushering in a new era. And the Bulls fans just had to brace themselves, much like we're in the middle of now, for times that were changing. So and that's another reason why, Bulls fans, you have to understand, like, we're going to go through some bad times. We're going to go through some very, very bad times. There's teams that's never won an NBA championship. We've at least done it 6 times. Like, we know how to do it. It's just a building block, man. Like some teams don't even get to sniff an NBA title, and we had the opportunity to win it. So just have some patience, man. We got to get the right people in there. It's not our time yet. Plus, did anybody think anyone is going to compete with any of the teams in the West right now? Like with Minnesota and OKC playing as well as they are, do you think anyone is going to have the opportunity to even catch them?
That's the thing when you talk about the Bulls and where they're going. Like, they need to have a long-term outlook on where they're going, because obviously there's no move that they can make that makes them an actual contender in the NBA. There's nobody they can add that's just going to do that. 5 years from now, they could take that kind of long-term approach where, okay, 5 years from now, some of these other teams will be aging out. What can we do right now to set us up so that when Modest Buzelis is reaching his peak, when Noah Essengay is reaching his peak, when whatever kid we draft in the lottery this year is reaching his peak, what moves can we make right now to make sure that when those guys are peaking, that's the time that we can kind of take advantage of it? And that kind of leads into my next disappointing stretch, because it was disappointing that we traded Derrick Rose. But what was more disappointing was what we did after we traded Derrick Rose. So we traded Derrick Rose. We didn't re-sign Joakim Noah. And the rhetoric, I can remember clear as day, they said, we're going to get younger. We're going to get more athletic. We're going to build around Jimmy Butler. So we all were like, okay, we're going to take a couple steps back, but we're going to be younger. We're going to play faster. It's going to go better. And then they went out and they signed Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade, 2 older, slower players. They both were coming off. I mean, Dwayne Wade, his knees were shot at that point. Rajon Rondo, I believe he had a torn ACL a couple years prior with the Celtics, and he just wasn't the same. But that team, they actually started out pretty decent. And then it was once again that December, January stretch, that midseason stretch, that's where teams really start to show themselves a little bit. In December and January, they combined to go 12-22. And if you remember, there were tons of reports of Rondo and Butler and Wade getting into it behind the scenes. Rondo making super passive aggressive Instagram posts talking about my OGs in Boston would have never did this. And then we led to them trading Taj Gibson and getting pennies on the dollar for him too. When people talk about, the Kobe White trade at the deadline, I remember being so much angrier when we traded Taj Gibson for Cam Payne. And I don't think there were any draft picks with that one either. I think it was just a straight up trade. So what do you remember about that 3 Alpha season? Because this was, I think I was about 26 or 27. So I was a little more mature in my sports takes, but I still did that stupid fan thing that we do sometimes where I convinced myself we're going to get one last Dwayne Wade season. Jimmy Butler's one of the best 15 players in the NBA. We're going to be good this year. And then obviously it didn't happen. How did you feel about that 3 Alpha team?
So this is kind of a silly way to look at it, but I remember where I was delivering pizzas for my dad at the time, and I was listening to the radio, and I heard that we got Dwayne Wade, and I'm like, Dwayne Wade? I'm like, why the hell are we even going after Dwayne Wade? I'm like, as much as I want to see Dwayne Wade on the Bulls, like I would have loved that 10 years ago. Like, now granted, Dwayne Wade's another one of those players that he still had it even in his old age, and I still think that on that Bulls team, he held back really what he could have been. I just thought that team was very, I don't want to say poorly put together in the form of players, just poorly put together in the form of you took 3 of the toppest A personalities and put them all on the same team. What did you expect was going to happen? It's kind of like when they put Jimmy Butler on the same team as Draymond Green, and it's like, did you guys think that through before you made that trade? Like Rondo, we always knew he was kind of a hothead, and for him to say that's not what we did in Boston, where I know that we shouldn't let the players dictate how stuff gets run. You should still kind of listen because this man is coming from a championship organization. If he says that's not how we did it in Boston, yeah, I know that the stigma is, well, we're not in Boston anymore, we're in Chicago. But you could still listen to the man and piece together some of those winning, one of those winning details and bring it and implement it in your game plan. The fact that we had all 3 of them on the same team and trying to be the 3 alphas and it was kind of like what are we doing? It was kind of looked like it was an orchestrated plan just to sell more tickets. And I may be mistaken, but with 3 really big names like that, I'm sure Jerry Reinsdorf sold a lot of tickets, especially with the hometown hero of Dwayne Wade. And he had an incredible, you remember his first game back where he, I forgot who it was against, but then he hit that dagger and then he did he even got the fine for doing the cutthroat sign. I was happy. I'm like, man, Dwayne Wade is actually on the Chicago Bulls. I never thought I'd live to see the day.
Yeah, and that first month, Dwayne Wade was playing like old Dwayne Wade. I forget who it was against, but he had a poster dunk on the Chicago Bulls where he yammed it on somebody, and it was like, holy shit, this is throwback Dwayne Wade. And I was definitely like going on NBA Store and being like, do I order a Dwayne Wade Chicago Bulls jersey? And then that January December stretch, the 12-22, that hit, and that was injuries, that was Rondo kind of. I mean, Rondo's remembered as a great player, and he was a great player, but he was also a very mopey player, somebody who would just tune the coaches out and kind of ruin team chemistry in a couple spots. So I'm glad I didn't, go ahead and get that Dwayne Wade jersey. I have some embarrassing Chicago Bulls jerseys in my repertoire, but I never bit the bullet on that Dwayne Wade one. So I like going through and just remembering these kind of stretches because so many times right now you're seeing people on Twitter, they're losing it. They're like, this is the worst it's ever been as a Bulls fan. And I'm like, I don't know about that, guys. Like, I've felt worse. And shout out to everybody in the chat right now. The chat's popping off. Yeah. Guilty. I know you see the Anderson Silva poster in the background. I know a man like you can appreciate that. One of the greatest knockouts in UFC history. I got one more disappointing stretch, and this is a recent one, so one might hit home a little bit for some people. but do you remember the 20 to 21 season, the post bubble season? We were playing in empty arenas. The seats were tarped off, and the Bulls, they were kind of surprising. Like, they started the season and it was like, okay, here we go, another bad Bulls year. Then the middle of the year, they found their groove, and the month before the trade deadline, they actually went 8-6, played themselves into a play-in spot. Zach LaVine was playing good. He was starting to get some national attention as well. And then we traded for Nikola Vucevic. And I'm not going to blame this on Nikola Vucevic, but post Nikola Vucevic, we went 11-22 after that trade, finished, I think, 11th, if not 12th in the conference. That draft pick that we ended up sending to them, when we made that trade, we thought we were going to be a play-in team. We thought that draft pick was going to be like 14, 15. We weren't really sweating it. That draft pick turned into Franz Wagner. I believe it was 7th overall, made the trade look a lot worse. And it really was just, terrible, terrible circumstances after that Vooch trade. We made the Vooch trade. Zach LaVine got COVID. He was out for a couple weeks. They had really strict protocols back then. What do you remember about that month prior to the Vooch trade where we went 8-6 and we were a play-in team and everybody was getting their hopes up because Zach LaVine was playing like an all-star? And then what do you remember post-Vooch trade and the meltdown that season, and then finding out that pick that we were sending that we thought was going to be middle of the road was actually top 10?
It's funny you mentioned this because I had the same conversation with my oldest kid because, he was talking about how like the Vooch or the trade ended up being Franz Wagner, and it's kind of rubbing it in our face. But like, look at it on the other side. Look at it on the other side of the coin. How many trades, how many picks have we traded away that ended up being complete busts, and we've won that trade? I mean, that just happened to be the one trade that kind of reflected negatively on us. Like, I'm despite that, I still knew that we were on the up and up. Like, anytime you acquire a center like a Nikola Vucevic, which Nikola Vucevic wasn't like the Vucevic we saw the last couple of years. Vooch was still a really good center. I mean, he hits the long ball with ease. He had great post footwork. It was a big that you could pool players around him and start building. You just had a piece. You had a contributing piece. And again, as much as people don't like to admit it, I'm going to be the one to give it to him. Nikola Vucevic, when it's all said and done, still going to go down as the 3rd or 4th best center in Chicago Bulls history. I know it's terrible to say, but he wasn't as bad as people thought. It's just a lot of stats on a team that didn't really produce any playoff berths, so it gets swept to the wayside. But again, I just thought it was, finally we're getting some much needed talent in there, and we're starting to stack the deck. And that was really the first year that I knew, like, there's going to be big acquisitions coming, because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that the first year that AK took over?
Yep, that was his first year. That was the first big move he made. Remember, he came in that season and he didn't make any moves in the offseason other than hiring Billy Donovan. He didn't trade anybody away. He let Wendell Carter play, Kobe White, Chris Dunn was still on that team, Chandler Hutchinson was still on that team, Otto Porter was on that team. Like, he let them play for a couple months and see how it played out. And then he made the moves. And, some of the moves were not so great. Like the Vooch trade, I will always say, I was one of Nikola Vucevic's biggest haters. But when we made the trade, I was excited and I understood it at the time. Even looking back now, I understand it. Like I said, they went 8-6 the month before. They said, okay, if we can replace Wendell Carter Jr. with an all-star big man, because Vooch was an all-star that year, we could be an actual playoff team. And at that point, it had been 6 seasons since we made the playoffs, 5 or 6 seasons. So I understood it. Zach LaVine was getting to that age where he was coming up on his contract extension. You had to figure out, like, can this guy play in the playoffs or not? So I never hated the Vooch trade at the time. Hindsight, looking back, my question has always been, who were we bidding against? Why did we have to give up that many draft picks? Why weren't there more protections on those draft picks? Fair questions to answer, but he really retooled that roster at that deadline. He got Javonte Green, which worked out really well, even though we had to give up Luke Cornett. But Luke Cornett's one of those guys where he wasn't going to be anything in Chicago. It took him having to play with a championship to be something. He got rid of Chandler Hutchinson. He got rid of Otto Porter. He turned a lot of that roster over at that trade deadline. So when you look at that 11-21 post Vooch trade record, it's not all on Vucevic. Obviously, it's Zach LaVine missing a big stretch of the end of that season, and it's just all the roster turnover. We discussed it on our last episode with the 0-for-11 stretch and how Josh Giddey had a rough start those first 4 games. And was it the health? Was it the chemistry? And a lot of it clearly was the chemistry. He's still getting used to playing with these guys. The last 2 games, Josh Giddey's been fantastic. He's looked like, the Josh Giddey before the injuries. So it's one of those things where you got to remember when you make a lot of trades in a short amount of time, these guys don't know how to play together right away.
Right. I remember those days were very, very dark days with like the Paul Zipser, Ryan Arcidiacono, and I know he was your guy. I want to touch on this guy real quick before we move on, but Chris Dunn. I was a huge Chris Dunn fan, and I know he went to Providence. That was back in the day when I actually watched a lot of college sports. I guess my follow-up question is, did you have high hopes for Chris Dunn? Because I watched his mixtapes, which I know anybody can string together their 10 best highlights and call it a mixtape and look incredible. But I watched him play in Providence. I know he was drafted number 3 overall, but did you have faith in Chris Dunn, or did you expect him to play a little differently than what he panned out to be?
I expected him to be a little different than what he panned out to be. I think I had a little more background on Chris Dunn when he was traded to the Bulls, just because his rookie season was in Minnesota, and Minnesota drafted him because they needed a point guard. That was the team that had Zach LaVine, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. They were a young team. And they said, hey, if we can get a point guard in here, we can be something. And then Chris Dunn, like right away, Tom Thibodeau was like, I'm not playing this dude. So that was a red flag to me, because of Tom Thibodeau, a defensive genius who's known for playing guys who work hard. If he's not playing a guy whose reputation is as an all-world defender, that's kind of a red flag to me. So when the Bulls traded for him, I wasn't super upset or anything. I saw him as kind of what we see Rob Dillingham as, where he's a former lottery pick, but he wasn't traded with the value of a former lottery pick. You're taking a flyer on him. You're seeing if he can turn into something. But the headline of that trade was obviously Zach LaVine coming back rather than Chris Dunn. So Chris Dunn, it took him, how many years did it take him before he figured it out? The last 2 or 3 years really with the Clippers before he kind of found his niche in the NBA and found his role. And that's the reality that we don't talk about sometimes, is these lottery picks, guys like Chris Dunn or Emmanuel Mudiay, or, Frank, however you pronounce the name, Frank Ntilikina, the former Knicks point guard. Like a lot of these guys, they come to the NBA, they've been the man everywhere that they've gone. They get to the NBA, they're not the man anymore. They're now the 7th, 8th best player on their team. So many of these guys flush out of the NBA because they don't figure out how to fit into a role. And that's always the risk when you're talking about trading for former lottery picks is, can a Rob Dillingham realize, I'm not going to be the man in the NBA. I need to find my role. I need to find my niche. And that's how I'm going to stick. Chris Dunn was able to do it. I have questions if Rob Dillingham will be able to do it.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, like any other Bulls fans, we have the utmost faith in him. I mean, that doesn't mean anyone's writing him off. I mean, he's a young kid. He needs to grow. This is his 2nd year in the league, and he's been traded already. So you got to imagine stuff like that takes a toll on your demeanor, takes a toll on your morale, and it's just going to take time for you to get your confidence back. Hopefully a good stint with the Chicago Bulls will give Rob Dillingham his confidence, and you see him turn in to a great player, because I still wholeheartedly have my faith in Rob Dillingham.
It spoke volumes that he didn't really see any minutes tonight, and the Bulls kind of took off in the minutes he didn't see. I mean, the kid has flashes for sure. Like his speed stands out amongst NBA athletes, which is rare. He just has to find a way to bottle that speed and control it a little bit and take the foot off the gas sometimes. Like speed is a great thing to have, but what made, the fastest guys in NBA history so great, the Derrick Roses, the Tony Parkers, the Allen Iversons, is they had the breaks too. Like they were fast enough where the game kind of slowed down around them. Like if you ever seen like the Justice League movie with the Flash, when he's running fast, time around him is slowing down. And that's what you see with the great players who've used their speed in the NBA before, is they're so fast, the rest of the game is slow. We're not seeing that with Rob Dillingham yet. Everything he does is kind of fast and out of control right now. So that's just my 2 cents on where we need to see the improvements from his game going forward.
Correct. Yes. hit it right on the head. And of course, you mentioned that it just so happened that the game he sits, we ended up winning. I don't know if this was just I'm going to stop experimenting for a second. We got to win a game because there's no way that I can be the coach that loses, this many games in a row. Like, do you think that it was more of today was more of a I'm gonna get the win no matter what because I see the opportunity to get the win, and I'm gonna do my little experimentations later. Like, Bobby D, it's cool. I know what you got. Sit on the bench. We'll get you next game. But right now, we need to handle business because we're not looking too good. We at least got to win one more game. Otherwise, heads are going to start to roll. Do you think that was more going into it?
Oh, for sure. Like, Billy Donovan is a proud guy at the end of the day. I can guarantee you Billy Donovan does not want the mark of having the all-time losing streak in Chicago Bulls history on his record. One of the things that has really confused me with the Billy Donovan tenure is why is he sticking around? Like, what is he getting out of this? Because I feel like his tenure with the Chicago Bulls has done nothing but hurt his reputation. Like, before, he was known as the Florida Gators coach who won national championships and always had contending teams. Went to the OKC Thunder, and he took them to a Western Conference Finals. He was a winning coach. But in Chicago, man, now he's become the butt of jokes. Like, when somebody gets fired, no matter what sport it is, people will be like, this guy, Billy Donovan outlasted this guy. And it doesn't matter if it's a football coach being fired, a baseball manager, whatever. He's become the butt of jokes in the sports world. So I haven't understood why he's like what he's getting out of sticking around. And it'll be interesting to see if this is his last straw, if he just decides to quit this offseason and move on to something else. But as far as today's game goes, yeah, he was definitely looking at the schedule like, okay, we have to win this game. Like, I can't lose 12 in a row.
Yeah. And by no means by me saying this, am I saying that players are going out there with the intention to lose or a coach is drawing up schemes with the intention. I'm not saying that at all, because there was a lot of variables that played into today's victory. The fact that Josh Giddey looked a little bit more comfortable tallying up his first triple-double since his injury. It was the first time we saw a starting lineup that was pretty close to what we used to have, in the form of, we had Ice, we had Modest, we had Giddey, we had shades of our old lineup back, and really the only new guy in there was Yabubu. So that contributed as well, because those players know how to play amongst each other. And a lot of fans who watch the game, I never can understand this. Any other team, when you play their star and they lose, or if you play them with their star on the bench and they lose, it's like, oh, you guys only won because, he was on the bench. But the Bulls are the only team, I don't know if it's because it's our bias, that we as fans never recognize that the whole damn team has been hurt the whole damn season. I mean, I would have loved to seen what this team looked like had everyone been healthy. Now, I am not trying to sit here and advocate that we would have been a playoff team, and I'm not saying that, nor am I saying that we would have been exactly where we're at. All I'm trying to say is I would have loved to seen what this team would have looked like had injuries never occurred, because a lot of fans don't really give injuries the credit that it's due, in the form of negatively reflecting the team as a whole. I mean, just take one player. Imagine if Josh Giddey never got hurt. You know what I mean? He would have had more time to develop chemistry with these players. Like, injuries really do hurt the team. Look what happened with, again, throwing it back to D Rose. If D Rose never got hurt, how many championships would he have won? So that's what I'm saying. Like, Bulls fans also got to take, what do you call that? Extenuating circumstances in condition. So
there's a flip side to that coin too. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but there's definitely another side of Bulls Twitter that is like, if the injuries didn't happen, this team was 5-0, we would have been a contender, we would have been this, we would have been that. Yeah. We've been hurt all year long. Like, they use that as such a crutch for why this team failed. But that's basketball. There's injuries everywhere. I mean, the OKC Thunder, look at them. They've been missing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren. Jalen Williams has barely played this year. Caruso is a part-time player for them because they're saving him for the playoffs. They still win. They still have only lost like 16 games this year. We had a fully healthy Chicago Bulls team play a Pistons team early in the season that was missing Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham. I don't remember if Thompson played that game, but I know Tobias Harris didn't play that game. It was like Dennis Jenkins was going off against us. Like their injuries affect every team in the NBA. The Orlando Magic, they've only had 15 games this year where Paulo Franz and Jalen Suggs all played together. So I agree with what you're saying that injuries definitely hurt this team. Where you lose me is when you ignore the rest of the league and you ignore the fact that that's basketball. That's modern basketball. As guys get hurt, guys miss time. I mean, the Cavs right now, they're down Donovan Mitchell and James Harden's playing through a broken thumb, and they're still finding a way to win games. So I agree with what you're saying to an extent, but also we can't use that as a crutch because we've seen teams overcome injuries to better players and still reel off wins.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And by no means am I trying to say that, well, if we would have, if we would have won, if we would have had our players back, we would have been propelled into another echelon, because you're absolutely right. Injuries are part of the game, and there should be plays and games that are predetermined based on a player's injuries. 100% agree. My only standpoint was the fact that is, if you look at the league in its entirety, like the Bulls have been pretty riddled with injuries. I'd say we're probably one of the top injured teams in the league as far as roster. I mean, I think at one point we had 7. What was it? That game that we had 7 or 9 active players on the roster. You know what I mean? That's all. Just but I agree. Yes, that does. We've played teams where their players have been out, and we failed to capitalize on the win, and they still found a way to capitalize on the win. It's just more of the dynamic of the team gets altered a little bit. That's all.
And that's one of my arguments for when we talk about AK and his roster building. Like the Bulls' record in games that Isaac Okoro has missed this year, it's crazy. See Red Fred, shout out to him. He always points it out because he loves Isaac Okoro. But there's something like it's like 2-12 or something in games that he's missed this year. That's not 100% accurate, but it's something in that realm. And that's always been my argument is if your roster is so dependent on Isaac Okoro, then you have an extremely flawed roster. That would be like, I'm trying to think, it'd be like if the Minnesota Timberwolves, if Jaden McDaniels missed, 15 games and they only won 2 of those games, you would be shocked. You'd be like, Jaden McDaniels is an important player to that team. He is their best defender for sure, but they have enough talent outside of that team because he's not a star level player. They can overcome his injury. Where with the Bulls, the way that he's built this roster, it's made it so a guy like Isaac Okoro, a role player in this league, suddenly becomes a guy where he's dependent on your winning, and you're referring to him as a young core player when no other successful team in the NBA would refer to Isaac Okoro as a core player.
Yeah, that's really, and you touched on it there. So that's where you got to be ready, and also as a player, you got to be ready for when that guy goes down to take the reins and kind of fill the void. Now, I'm not saying to do equally as good of a job or better, but just kind of stop the bleed a little bit. Yeah. So if a guy gets hurt, the next man up has got to be ready to go.
So I know I touched on all the disappointing moments that I could do some research on. Was there anything that I missed? Is there any stretch that you remember being a fan and you were like, man, I just don't want to be a Chicago Bulls fan anymore. This is dark.
Oh, nah, man. There's the thing. I'm obsessed with 2 things in life, and one of them are the Chicago Bulls, man. Like I said, I keep harping on it. I'm sure everyone's sick and tired of hearing this, but whether we go 0-82 or we win a championship every year for the rest of my life, I'm still going to be watching, man. I honestly don't think that there's okay. I shouldn't say this because it makes me sound silly, and I'm going to be embarrassed at the end of this, but the only time that I remotely came close to not watching the Bulls anymore, all right, so I was a bit of a conspiracy theorist when I was a kid, and one of the conspiracy theories that somebody tried to sell me on is the Bulls were actually a Satanist.
Oh,
like it was actually really Satan related. Like the Bulls logo looks oddly enough like the devil, and the Bulls won 6 championships, and the number 23, if you put 2 divided by 3, it's 666. That was the closest that I'm like, shoot, man, maybe that's right. Maybe the man upstairs like put this as as my test, and I'm failing miserably. Again, that was a huge reach that lasted all of about 10 days. But no, nothing will ever keep me from this team, man. And honestly, they don't get enough credit, so I'm going to do it here. Shout out, man. Shout out to the misses. Shout out to the husbands and the wives that allow us to consume the games and make the content, man, because that's really the only people that would stand in my way. As much as I love creating content and watching this team, if ever the misses or anyone says, hey, you got to cut it, I would value them over anything else. But so shout out to them for having the patience. I mean, I got a wife in the other room right now who she just drove an hour up from a neighboring town, and she's allowing me to sit and watch, sit and create contests. So shout out to all the misses and the husbands out there. So.
Hell yeah, we couldn't do this without them. Mine right now is putting our 3-month-old daughter to bed. So it's nice that they allow us to, do this and talk about a team that for the most part does nothing but let us down these days. But we're still here. No matter what they do, we're always going to be here. So I know you had a couple things lined up for our new segment, On Tap or Crap. Let's get into it.
So as you touched on it, so I do this over on the other show that I do. I'm not going to plug because it's not how I do. If you know me, you know what the other show is. But it's a little segment that I like to call On Tap or Totally Cap. And I want to get the audience involved. So if you're in the group chat right now, please play along and leave your answers. I'd love to hear your side of it. So On Tap or Totally Cap is just a game where I'm going to give you a scenario. If you think it's a possibility or you agree with it, you say you say On Tap. And if you think it's off the wall, never going to happen, and you think that like I'm BSing you, Totally Cap. I got 3 of them for you today just to test the waters. So if you're ready, if chat's ready, if you're ready to go, let's get it started.
I think we're ready, man. The chat looks ready. We got local Bulls fan in there. What up, AD? We got Guilty in there. Guilty agreed with your satanic comment too. He said there's some weight behind that. So
I'm telling you.
You guys need to do like a podcast separately where you dive into those conspiracy theories.
We may or may not have something lined up. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right.
Question number 1 on the first ever On Tap or Totally Cap is: the Chicago Bulls capture a top 5 pick this year. On Tap or Totally Cap?
I'm going to be hopeful, and I'm going to say On Tap. Like we need one this year. And that's kind of been my stance for the last couple of weeks. Everybody's like, who do you want in the draft? And I'm like, any of them. Like, I'm not going to be, if it's Boozer, if it's Diabanza, if it's Peterson, if it's Wilson, like I'm not going to be mad with any of them. Just give me one of them. Give me something to be hopeful for. So I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to say On Tap with that.
Perfect. Right on. All right. Question number 2 of On Tap or Totally Cap. We just got our first win. It's been a little over a month since we've gotten a win. And that is, with the remaining games left, the Chicago Bulls win at least 5 more games.
Can I? I'm gonna say they win exactly 5 more games. I'll split it even. I'm gonna say they win 5 more games because I believe they have teams like the Mavericks, the Kings. I know they have 2 games against like the Pelicans or one of the bottom dwellers coming up. So I think they're gonna get about 5 more wins.
Okay. Yeah. We finally got one, so hopefully some chemistry kicks in. Hopefully some of that old school. So hopefully Josh Giddey recovers. Hopefully we can get those wins. This one is a stretch, and it is a stretch. And if you're a man shaped like me, you need to do a lot more stretching. And that is On Tap or Totally Cap. The Chicago Bulls win a championship within the next 10 years.
I'm gonna say as hopeful as I want to be. I'm just gonna say Totally Crap. I mean, it's tough, man. Like right now, we don't have the building blocks for a championship, and we are entering the Anthony Edwards era, the Victor Wembanyama era, the Cooper Flag era. Like there's so much young talent in the NBA right now. The OKC Thunder are obviously primed to keep making runs. the Spurs are right behind them, and that team is scary. And then you still got, the Celtics when Jason Tatum gets back, they're going to be making noise. Like it's hard. It's hard for me when we don't have the number one, piece that certified superstar right now. Hard for me to say that we'll get a championship in the next 10 years. So as much as I hope we do, I got to say totally crap.
Yeah, right on, right on. I'm loving the chat. The chat right now, there's a fair amount of people that believe that they will and a fair amount that say they will not. Like I'm loving how evenly distributed these answers have been. That was on tap or totally cap. If you have one that you want to submit to me and ask on the air, submit it to us and I'll give you a shout out. Thank you for playing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that.
So now we got two more segments here. We got our random bull of the day. We'll hit that first, and then we'll do the mailbag. We had some people post on Twitter, and I think there were ones earlier in the chat who were asking questions too. But random bull of the day, being that it's March 1st and it is March Madness, I'm going to hit you with one of the greatest March Madness stars of all time, who had a very short, very forgettable Chicago Bulls stint, but a Bulls stint nonetheless. Our random Chicago Bull of the day, Jimmer Fredette. What do you remember about the Jimmer days?
Man, what did I remember? I don't know if I blinked and they were already done, but if I'm not mistaken, man, that man was a scoring machine in college. That man was a scoring machine. He was a walking, he was literally the definition of a walking bucket, but he was also a classic example of just because you are the king of, because he went to BYU, I believe.
Yep.
Just because you're the king of college doesn't mean that you're the king of anything in the pros, man. He came up to the pros and didn't really pan out like he was supposed to. Now that doesn't mean he didn't have a successful career, because then I believe he went on to, I believe it was China or somewhere overseas, and he had a pretty lucrative career out there. But man, I just remember getting so pumped that we got Jimmer, because that was one of the first times that I can remember that the Bulls got a player from college that I actually was following and wanted. Like, oh man, we got Jimmer. We're gonna be hitting threes. My man's gonna be pulling up from 30 feet away, hitting them in stride, and that fell about 10 yards short of what of expectations. So. I think we ended up sending him to, did he come from, or did we send him to Sacramento?
He came from Sacramento. So Jimmer, we signed him. It was the year that Derrick Rose came back, but tore his meniscus after 10 games. So it was the year after the Nate Robinson year. So I was hyped. I was like, oh, sweet. We might have lost Nate Robinson this offseason, but now we're signing Jimmer Fredette. And then we played him 8 games and he had no impact. And the little bit of bail that I'll shoot Jimmer is, I think if he would have been drafted anywhere else, he might have actually carved out a niche for himself in the NBA, found a role. He got drafted by the Kings. How many great players over the years have the Kings drafted and just gone nowhere with? Like, I was a big Thomas Robinson fan when he was at Kansas. Kings drafted him. He never went anywhere. Jimmer Fredette, same thing. Like, everybody that they drafted never became anything. And then that's what you see happen to a lot of young players in the league is they get, a second chance and then they're just gone. So like Rob Dillingham, he's a good example where like, if this doesn't work in Chicago, is he going to get a second chance, or is he gone to China like Jimmer Fredette had to be? But being that it was March 1st, I had to bring up the BYU Steph Curry, Jimmer Fredette, because man, that run that he had at BYU, that was fun, man. That was one of the most fun runs in college basketball.
I think one of the only Sacramento Kings I can, and again, this is just at a dice roll, is just Tyrese Halliburton so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, right on, man. That was a deep cut, man. Shout out Jimmer. Shout out whatever he's doing now. I don't know what but shout out Jimmer.
I think he played on the Olympic 3-on-3 team or something. I feel like I saw him.
You're right.
Yeah, he was on a podcast talking about it, and I was like, when did we start doing 3-on-3 in the Olympics? But yes. I looked it up. I was looking at his stats. Me and him are the same age. He's a couple months older than me, which made me strangely feel really old, because it feels like a whole other lifetime ago that Jimmer Fredette was dominating college and even playing in the NBA. But he's still young enough. He's 37. If things would have worked out, he still could have been maybe in the NBA. So let's get into some of these mailbag questions here. I'll pull up the ones on Twitter first. So we got our boy Samity. Shout out Samity, one of the best follows that you'll have, because no matter what you post, my man Samity, he's going to repost it for you. He is one of the best guys that you can have, one of the coolest dudes on the planet. So he asks, what are your hopes for Jaden Ivey? I know you mentioned before the injury is an 18-month process, but I'm wondering if he can evolve his game a little bit, start becoming an off-the-ball shooter, moving off of screens or off pin downs. Do you have any hopes left for Jaden Ivey?
Honestly, yeah, but see, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, man. I'm actually almost overly optimistic when it comes to certain things, and Jaden Ivey is one of those players that's like, we'll see what he's got. You know what I mean? He's got the we got the opportunity of, there's a potential to sign him for a very, very team friendly option, and if that's the case, I think we're gonna be in for some very good Jaden Ivey years. He had the injury, and now he's got that nag. He's got the injury that sidelined him. I'm still optimistic to the point where I don't think that we won't see him again this year. I could be mistaken, or it could just be my optimism, but I still think we see a Jaden Ivey appearance before the end of the season. But to the answer the first question, I think so. I think we're going to see some good Jaden Ivey years ahead of us.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, I want the kid to work out. I liked Jaden Ivey a lot coming out of Purdue. The most jarring thing to me is, yes, this is an 18-month injury, and I've been on record saying that before. Like, these injuries do take time, but that athleticism, it's gone. And the knee procedure he had at the start of the year kind of scares me, because there were never any reports of any meniscus damage or ACL damage, and it was a procedure to clear up scar tissue. And my question was, where does scar tissue come from with a broken leg? And it was the same leg, which is a little bothersome. With the Derrick Rose injury that I referenced earlier, he tore his ACL in one leg, and then the next year he tore his meniscus in the other leg. And that's a common injury that you see from overcompensating. It's one of the things they warn you about when you tear your ACL. So I have questions about Ivey and, the true nature of his knee injury and what exactly it is they were cleaning up. A lot of my questions lately, too, revolve around his attitude. And I noticed it again at the game today. I tweeted it out, and Twitter is such a funny place, because there's some people who are like, you post negative stuff for clicks and for likes. And I'm like, dude, I just post what I'm thinking. Like, I can't help it if something that I post gets picked up and gets like 3,000 interactions and everybody sees it, while the other thing I post gets like 100 interactions. So I just posted that I noticed at the end of the game, everybody on the bench was standing up. They were dapping up Modest as he checked out with like 3 minutes left or something. Ivey wasn't. Ivey was sitting on the bench with his arms folded, didn't move. And he's been that way if you've watched the Chicago Bulls since he's been out with his injury. I noticed it the first game that he sat out, and I tweeted about it, and Pistons Twitter got a hold of it. And there were a lot of people in the replies that said he was kind of that way in Detroit too, where he was always off to the side. He always kind of, he wasn't rah-rahing it up with the guys when everybody else was. So I have questions about his attitude. I have questions, some of the quotes have been, I'm not going to say weird, because I don't want to touch on any religious stuff or anything like that, but they've been, if you want your athletes to be, all about the game and, all about ball, they've been kind of concerning. So as a player, I have questions about his injuries and, exactly what his game's going to look like without the athleticism, if it's ever going to come back. And then just the body language stuff I've been paying attention to on the bench, and that's what scares me. So I don't know if you've noticed any of that when you're seeing him on the bench here.
I mean, I've definitely noticed those things, but it's all things that I've taken with a grain of salt, because he's also new to the team. So he probably knows very few people. So taking time for his personality to get along with the rest of the team, I guess, and as he mentioned in that interview with, I believe, Casey Johnson, he looks like he's more religious and found a higher power with his Jesus beanies, and good for him. I'm going to let his play do the talking before I do. Hey, if that's who you are as a person when you're on the sideline, but when you step on the court, you're giving me 20 plus and lighting it up on the court, you can do what you want to do, man. Do you? I mean, I do some weird shit sometimes too that I, what I mean? But I just chalk it up as the man's the new guy. He got traded to he was number one in the East and got traded to a team that wasn't the number one team in the East. So that has to play on his emotions a little bit. And really I'm sure he did some soul searching. He just got over an injury that broke his leg, man. That's a terrible injury to have in the NBA. So I think it's really just a matter of Jaden Ivey finding himself, and then we'll see Jaden Ivey on the court. So, and if we have the patience and if the numbers match and we're lucky enough to re-sign him, I think that we're going to have a good Jaden Ivey career with him.
All right, we got our next question here from Bulls Rodeo. Can Matas Buzelis continue this stretch of games with 20 points, 5+ rebounds, 3+ assists, 2+ blocks? Who should the Bulls draft within the top 10, and who should they sign in the offseason? So I'll start this one. Yeah, I hope Matas Buzelis can continue this stretch of 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. His stats over the last 5 games are fantastic, and it looks like he's starting to play with a little bit more freedom. What have you noticed when you've been watching Matas these last 5 games or so?
Exactly that, confidence. We play in a game where, we watch a game where, you need talent, but another thing you need is confidence. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the confidence to take those shots or to get those blocks or to hustle down the court, you're not gonna amount to a lot. And I've noticed that he's moving a lot with a lot more confidence. His shot is falling way better, which boosts the confidence. In the end of the day, the game is a game where when you're missing shot, confidence is in the tank. But when you're hitting shots, that hoop just became 20 times its size because your confidence is sky high. So I've seen a different Matas Buzelis, and I'm seeing the guy who's ready to. I'm not saying he's going to take the step and become the captain of this team tomorrow. I'm not saying that, but we're showing shades of this man is going to improve and be that guy that we're all hoping he's going to be. So he's basically anyone who doubted if Matas Buzelis was ever going to be the guy, he's been proven to us that he is, and he's here.
Hell yeah. The rest of his question was, who should they draft within the top 10?
So here's the thing, and I think I mentioned this earlier on the cord. Really, I like them all. I mean, if you ask if I'm partial to anyone, it's going to be AJ DeBanza, just because I've been following him longer. I know a lot of people like Caleb Wilson, and that's cool. I don't watch a lot of college basketball nowadays. I usually save that towards right around now. March Madness is usually when I'll pick up because that's when season's wrapping up. But really, I've been following AJ a little bit longer. I actually followed him before he even picked BYU. I was kind of confused to why he went to BYU in the first place. But I was really hoping he would have went to Syracuse with Keon Anthony, and that would have been a fun team to watch. But I guess to make short of a long story, AJ DeBanza.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it all along in this whole process. I don't really have an ideal player for them to get in the top 10 because I feel like this top 10 is so strong that no matter what, you're going to get a good player. Like, in my opinion, you need a top 3 pick to get a franchise changer. Like, I think Boozer, Peterson, and Diabanza are the type of talents where they can change the fortunes of your franchise. The next level, the Caleb Wilson, the Wagler, Mikael Brown, like, they're still good players. I just don't know that they're changing the talents of your franchise. If you want to make a Pistons analogy, those first 3 seem like Cade Cunningham talents to me, where they're franchise changers. Those next 3 seem like Asar Thompsons to me, where they're very good players. They're going to be really important for your franchise, but they by themselves are not going to change your franchise. So the top 10 seems like it's got talent. I've heard Cole Pete thrown around there, Wagler, like every name and every highlight reel that I see. And like you, I don't get to watch a lot of college basketball. I mean, I'm married. I have a 3-month-old daughter. I run my own business. I watch an obscene amount of NBA basketball. So sitting down watching college basketball is just not in the cards right now. But everything that I see and everything that I hear from podcasts or from people that I know that watch college basketball and I trust their opinions, seems like anywhere you fall in the top 10, you're going to be good. So his final part of the question was, who should they sign in the offseason? Do you have an ideal target for them in the offseason?
Honestly, no. Honestly, first I want to see what the dynamic of this team looks like beforehand. We have a lot of expiring deals. We have a lot of, unanswered questions as far as a team. So really, who's my biggest target? This answer may disappoint you because I'm going to give you the Sally Miss America answer, but really anyone that's going to help this team. Really, I just want this team to kind of cement its direction. And we're past the Kobe White, Vooch, and Iodosumo era. I want to see this next season as a cemented, we're going this direction. The Modest, the Giddy, and the whoever they pick up or the draft pick. That's what I want to see. So but make short of a long story again, I just want to see anyone that's going to help this team go into the future. That's all.
Yeah, when you look at the free agent classes off season, all the good ones seem to be restricted free agents. So priority number one for me, the first day of the NBA offseason, the first day you're allowed to offer guys, I'm throwing Jalen Duren a max contract offer. The Detroit Pistons are 100% matching it. You're not getting Jalen Duren, but at least you're forcing their feet to the fire and you're making them do that. They're a division rival, so you're making them sweat a little bit. I'm not the biggest Walker Kessler guy. I'm not going to be mad if we sign him, but I don't think he's, the way some people talk about him, I'm not that high on him. Tari Eason, he's a nice guy too, nice player to have. Don't think he's a franchise changer. Won't be mad if we sign him, but it's not like I'm going to be over the moon. If you're looking at this offseason and you're wondering, is this a 2010 offseason where we can bring in a LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Amari Stoudemire? No, there's not even a Carlos Boozer in the free agent pool this offseason. So you can make some good signings around the fringes, but in terms of getting a game changer, there's nothing like that in the free agent classes offseason. And honestly, guys like that don't reach restricted free agency anymore. So that's all the questions we had on Twitter. I saw some people post some in the chat.
Yeah.
You got those pulled up?
Yeah, a couple of really, really good questions. First one is shout out to him, Mr. F to the T. His question is, and I'll pin it here on the screen, and that is, what is Modest's ceiling best case scenario? What is Modest's best case scenario ceiling? Again, I'm an optimist. I'm going to say, you know what? He's all NBA. You know what? His ceiling, hold on. Best case scenario, do you want me to stay realistic or unrealistic? Because I'll give you an unrealistic scenario where best case scenario, he's MVP of a championship team, all-star, MVP. Like, I'll give you all that. But I guess realistic scenario, I could see him making an all-star. I could see him hitting all-star a few times throughout his career.
Yeah, I've put a couple comps out there for him. I've said more athletic Franz Wagner a couple times, and I just don't know if people don't watch the Orlando Magic, but they always get mad when I say that. Franz Wagner is like a 22, 6-6 guy, and a more athletic version of that is a very good player in this NBA. A classic player who his defense gets some comparisons to is Andre Karolinko. So if he's Andre Karolinko with a more evolved offensive game, that's a pretty damn good player too. It's tough when we do the ceiling stuff because we don't know which way Modest Buzelis is going to go. Like, is he gonna become a weight room junkie and bulk up to 250 and become a true power forward, or is he going to stay slender and lean more towards being, a 3, if not a 2, and work more on the ball handling areas of his game and the finesse points of his game rather than the strength points? We don't know yet. So I'm comfortable with either of those ceilings for him. If he becomes either of those players that I just laid out, the Bulls hit an absolute home run.
Yeah, honestly. I'm hoping it's the one that I suggested. I'm hoping that I'm watching Modest hoisting a trophy. I at least want to see one more before I leave this place. So question number 2 comes from Real Pete Powell, and he asks, how do you legends? Jeez, legends.
Legends.
That's a loaded word there for me, man. I don't think I've ever been called a legend, but
third episode in, we're getting a legend take.
No kidding. How do you legends see the front office using our second rounders? That is a loaded question with a loaded word. I'm going to let you take that one if you want.
I think they're going to use them as sweeteners. I don't think, because AK hasn't really prioritized second round picks. Marko Simonovic was a second round pick and he got no burn here. They traded up for Julian Phillips and they had no problem throwing him into the Ayo Dosunmu trade. Lachlan Olbrich is a second round pick who's not really doing anything. Like, they haven't seen value from the second round, and AK hasn't. We've never seen him just like really prioritize moving up in the second round minus the Julian Phillips pick. So I don't think he's looking at those picks as more bites at the apple. I think he's looking at them as we could throw them in as sweeteners. Like, we'll give you Patrick Williams and a couple second round picks for you to take his salary and we take an expiring back, or something like that. I don't think he got those picks with the intent of using them.
Yeah, that's honestly that's a good way to put it. I think it's one of those. I'm gonna spice up a deal for you, or if in the case of this, I know the Pelicans pick it has a potential to be pretty high. I mean, if we're sitting, what is it, 32 right now? 32 is basically a glorified, additional first round pick right there. That's high enough, and you could still find some very, very good talent. A lot of people forget you can still find some very good quality talent in the second round. I know it doesn't have the spice and the flair and the zhuzh as a first round pick, but you can find some great players in the second round. But mainly look them to be used as tools. I mean, again, what fans need to understand is this team right now is very much a Rubik's Cube of a team. We don't know which way we're going to turn. We have something settled, but look, we have, 8 players with an expiring contract this year that Lord only knows who's coming back and who's leaving. So I think once we establish who we're getting, we'll know better what we're going to do with those picks. You know what I mean? Like, I think once we know the direction that this team is going to go as far as how this lineup is going to look in the future is what we'll do with those picks. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd say just like they were spiced up in a deal for us, they're going to be used to spice up other deals.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I think that's all the questions we got in the chat. So before we go, you got anything to plug? I know you got a new episode of Horns Over Hoops coming out this week.
I got it coming out. I got a feature a very special guest. I know he's in there. I'm going to be recording with him on the 4th. So I look forward to releasing that because this is featuring a guy that he really does need to be given his flowers and to have his presence known in this community. And it's already known, but this is somebody that I really want more people to find out about if they haven't found out him already. So look for that. How about you?
Nothing really on tap this week. Keep your eyes peeled on the Bulls on Tap page because I've been in contact with a couple different people who are going to spice up the show a little bit. We're going to get some good guests on here. So stay tuned to the page, and I think we're going to plan on coming back this Thursday. So just stay tuned to the page, guys. We got some big things coming here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before I close, I just want to say one thing, and I know we keep harping on how the community is divided and all that, but I want to say one thing, and it's more, even it goes beyond sports, and it's this. Disagree with each other. Bulls fans, if you disagree with each other, you learn something. If you have just a bunch of people agreeing with your scenarios and agreeing with your concepts and your takes, you never really learn anything. You never see the other side of the coin. So go ahead and have a disagreement with somebody and really listen. Don't just judge them. Listen to their thought process on how they view things. And again, not just in sports, but in the world as a whole, because like I said earlier, you just agreeing with them, you're really not ever learning what their thought process is. And human beings are very interesting people, and that is, we do not all think the same way. So really diving into the other person's head and saying, man, what do you think like that? Like, for instance, I could throw out a scenario and say the Bulls are going to win next year. They're going to win the whole thing next year. Now, here's the thing. You may look at me right now like I'm crazy. Why do you think that? Like, there's no way that'll ever happen. But then at the same time, when they do win, I look like a freaking genius. And you were like, I wonder what he knew that nobody else knew. You got to think, I know that there was somebody out there that was saying the Lakers are going to trade Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. And everyone thought that man must have been a madman. But look what happened. That guy ended up being right. So I guess what I'm trying to say to wrap it all up is it's cool to disagree with people. I love when people disagree with me because it gives me an opportunity to learn a different style of thinking. Now I'll ask, yes, in those areas, it is easy to take offense that somebody doesn't agree with you. But I would say try to push your pride aside, have a disagreement with somebody, and have a respectable conversation on where their view set is coming from. That's all I got.
Great way to close the show, man. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you, man. Well, fans, that's going to be last call for us. We're tapping out of here. Until the next round, we encourage us all to see red and go Bulls. Thanks for joining us tonight. Please, if you haven't done so already, drop us a sub, like this page. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below, and we'll shout you. If you have a random bull that you would like to see featured on the show, drop them in the section, and we'll be sure to not only use him but shout you out in the process. If you have not subscribed to On Tap Sports or any of mine and Justin's pages, please do so and show the love. If you want to see more of us, head over there, and let's help this Bulls content creator community spread like a wildfire. So with that being said, everyone, have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Sal Best. Live when the mic snap. Justin. In the cut, bring the fight back. Windy City talk, turn it down, that's that. Welcome to the show, it's Bulls on tap. Bulls on tap, pull it up, press play. Chi-Town talk, we can run it all day. From the tip-off buzz to the post-game rap. If you rock with the Bulls, you rock with Bulls on tap.